But that loss of control workers feel on the job doesn't stay confined to the workplace. Eventually it spills into politics too. Because when people spend years feeling monitored, disposable, economically squeezed, and increasingly powerless over the conditions shaping their lives, they start losing faith not just in employers, but in institutions more broadly. And that helps explain the political mood we're seeing right now, especially the growing sense among many workers that neither party is really speaking for them anymore. So there's a nervous question hanging over a lot of post-election conversations at the moment, especially among Democrats and people in labor politics. It goes something like this. Why are working class voters slipping away? Why do union households feel less predictable than they used to? And why does economic anger keep turning into political whiplash instead of long-term support for the kinds of policies that, on paper, should help working people? One uncomfortable answer is starting to break through, including in parts of the labor left. It may not be that workers hate economic populism. It may be that they don't trust the institutions delivering the message. A recent argument in Jacobin framed it as a problem of authenticity. Democrats, it says, have gotten worse at presenting themselves as a real working class party, even when parts of their agenda are still popular. And that gap isn't subtle. It's the distance between professional class political branding and the realities that dominate working class life. Paychecks that can't keep up, rent that keeps rising, healthcare that still feels like a trap, jobs that feel shaky, prices that jump, and corporations that seem to get stronger no matter who wins. If you actually talk to workers, this isn't hard to recognize. A lot of them do support higher wages. A lot of them do support taxing the rich. They want Social Security and Medicare protected. They like the idea of stronger labor rights. They're not fans of corporate monopolies running the table. In other words, plenty of people are on board with the substance. But here's the catch. Many of those same people don't feel like either party belongs to them anymore. That theme comes through sharply in a review of Les Leopold's book, The Billionaires Have Two Parties, We Need a Party of Our Own. Whether or not you buy Leopold's exact proposal, the review highlights a political crisis that organizers say they're running into inside their own unions, disengagement. Not just cynicism about Washington, but a deeper skepticism about representation itself. And there's one line in that review that hits like a punch. Workers often don't trust the institutions claiming to represent them, including their own unions. If you care about the labor movement, that last sentence is hard to sit with. But it also explains a lot. For decades, a standard approach in union politics has been pretty straightforward. Back Democrats, try to win reforms, block Republicans, and repeat the cycle. The problem is that across the decades, the underlying conditions for many workers still got worse. Plants shut down. Work got more precarious. Housing prices ran away from wages. Healthcare stayed punishingly expensive. Corporate consolidation accelerated. And even when the economy looked strong in the headlines, a lot of workers felt like they were sprinting just to stay in the same spot. So when someone in a leadership role says, you have to vote for this person because they're pro-worker, plenty of workers respond with a question that isn't irrational at all. If the pro-worker side has been in the picture for all these years, why does daily life feel more insecure than it used to? This is where the review makes a point that a lot of political professionals miss. It argues that many workers aren't instinctively rejecting populist economic ideas. Instead, they flinch at the partisan identity wrapped around those ideas. They may like the policy, but distrust the logo on the package. And that difference is huge, because if you assume workers are simply getting more conservative, you end up chasing cultural explanations and messaging tweaks. But if the real issue is collapsed institutional trust, then the problem is structural. Party labels themselves start to act like a shortcut to disbelief. The moment something sounds like it's coming from the usual political machine, a lot of people stop listening. The review keeps returning to the idea of independent working class power. You don't have to agree on whether a new party is the answer to see the broader point. Labor gets weaker when unions are seen mainly as sidecars to a political party, instead of as independent organizations that workers control and trust. Historically, unions were at their strongest when they weren't acting like campaign branches. They were power centers in their own right. That meant serious political education, not just election season talking points. It meant worker-to-worker organizing. It meant internal democracy that felt real. It meant solidarity built around issues and shared conditions. And it meant a culture where the union belonged to the workers, not to consultants, donors, or party strategists. Another argument from the review feels especially relevant in this moment. Organizers can't lead with partisanship or ideology if they want to rebuild strength. They have to meet workers where they are. That doesn't mean dropping values. It means understanding how solidarity actually forms in the real world. Most people don't show up at the workplace with a fully developed political identity, ready to plug into a movement. People become more solidaristic through experience, through campaigns, through taking risks together, through a strike, or even through a smaller fight where coworkers realize they're not isolated. Through the moment when it becomes obvious that individual coping strategies don't work in an economy built to extract as much as possible from everyone who isn't already on top. And labor hurts itself when it starts from cultural sorting instead of material organizing. Work is one of the few places where people who disagree about plenty of things still share the same pressures. Your boss doesn't care who you voted for when they cut your hours. Your landlord doesn't lower the rent because your politics are correct. Private equity doesn't protect your pension because you won an argument online. Class politics becomes real when people recognize the shared stakes underneath their differences, when they see that they can fight together, even if they don't match perfectly on every social question, every identity marker, or every partisan label. And that brings us back to the unresolved tension inside Democratic politics right now. Can a party that is so closely associated, fairly or not, with affluent professional class culture still persuade working people that it's the vehicle for working class power? Or are we moving into a period where more workers start looking outside their traditional party structure entirely, not because they become ideological purists, but because they're looking for something more basic? Because under all the polling breakdowns, the messaging debates, and the endless analysis of voter shifts, there's a deeper point emerging. Workers aren't only looking for representation, they're looking for agency. They want to feel like they can actually shape the conditions of their lives, and that the organizations asking for their loyalty are accountable to them, not the other way around.